simply saying, yo, he's not ready yet. And to put him out there, getting him exposed to that, is really hard to watch. When we get to Bronny James, that kid has done nothing.
Bronny James is already living the kind of pressure most NBA rookies never experience in their entire careers. And now the spotlight just got even hotter after Stephen A. Smith publicly questioned whether Bronny is truly ready for the NBA level. The conversation exploded instantly, because this isn't just about a rookie trying to survive the league anymore. This is about the son of LeBron James, carrying expectations that honestly no young player should ever have to carry this early. Every mistake becomes a headline, every missed shot becomes debate fuel, every minute he plays gets analyzed like a playoff game. And now one of the loudest voices in sports media is openly asking if Bronny actually belongs in the league right now. That changes everything, because when Stephen A. says something like that, the basketball world reacts immediately. The criticism started gaining traction after Bronny's early performances drew mixed reactions from fans, analysts, and former players. Some people believe he's developing exactly how a young prospect should develop. Others think the Lakers rushed the process because of LeBron's influence. Stephen A. Smith leaned heavily into that second argument, basically questioning whether Bronny earned this moment through NBA-level production, or whether the spotlight and family legacy accelerated his path faster than it should have. And whether people agree or disagree, that comment landed hard, because deep down, a lot of fans were already quietly wondering the same thing.
Truthfully speaking, it only makes sense that it's Bronny James. Not to be redundant, but it's necessary to be that way. Bronny James doesn't belong in the NBA.
What makes this situation so intense is that Bronny isn't entering the NBA like a normal second-round prospect. Most second-round picks develop quietly. They spend time in the G League. They struggle without cameras tracking every possession. Nobody debates their future daily on national television. Bronny doesn't get that luxury. The second he stepped onto an NBA court, the conversation stopped being about development and immediately became about proving legitimacy. That's a brutal position for any 20-year-old player, especially one trying to recover momentum after a frightening health scare during college that already interrupted his basketball growth. Stephen A. didn't just question the talent gap either. He questioned the entire environment surrounding Bronny. He talked about how dangerous it can be when expectations are disconnected from readiness. That's where the conversation becomes uncomfortable, because now people are debating whether Bronny is being set up to succeed or being thrown into an impossible situation because of his last name. And honestly, there's evidence on both sides. The Lakers clearly see potential in him, defensively, in his basketball IQ, and in his work ethic. But offensively, the adjustment has looked difficult at times. The pace is faster, the defenders are stronger, the windows close instantly. NBA guards don't give young players time to figure things out.
He can't go into the G League and average 20, 25, and stay there until he's ready. Because he's LeBron's son, you know how they're gonna judge him.
Here's the part nobody is talking about. Bronny was never supposed to become a superstar immediately. The problem is that the internet doesn't care about realistic timelines anymore. Fans see LeBron James' son and automatically expect highlight plays, dominant scoring nights, and instant impact. But Bronny's game has never been built around flashy dominance. Even in high school, scouts described him as a smart role player, a defender, a connector piece, someone who impacts the game in subtle ways. That's valuable basketball, but subtle games don't survive social media pressure very well, especially when your father is arguably the greatest player of all time. And this is exactly why Stephen A.'s comments hit differently than regular criticism. He didn't just critique Bronny's stats, he questioned the bigger picture surrounding the entire situation. He basically asked whether Bronny is being evaluated fairly or emotionally. Because if we remove the James name from the equation entirely, would this exact player be receiving this much media coverage, this much patience, or this much opportunity? That question is uncomfortable, but it's also unavoidable. Sports fans debate fairness constantly, and Bronny is now trapped inside one of the biggest fairness debates the NBA has seen in years.
Any attention that he's warranted has been because of his daddy.
At the same time, people forget how mentally exhausting this situation probably is for Bronny himself. Imagine entering the NBA knowing millions of fans already formed opinions about you before your first game even started. Some people desperately want him to fail because they're tired of LeBron coverage. Others desperately want him to succeed because they love the family story. Very few people are actually allowing him to exist normally as a young developing player. Every single performance feels political somehow. That kind of environment can crush confidence fast if a player isn't mentally strong enough to block out the noise. LeBron's presence adds another layer nobody can ignore. The dream of playing alongside his son became one of the biggest storylines in basketball history, and eventually it became reality. That sounds beautiful from a legacy perspective, but it also created enormous pressure for Bronny, because now critics believe every opportunity is connected to his father's influence. Fair or unfair, that perception follows him everywhere. If he struggles, critics say he was handed the spot. If he succeeds, people question whether the praise is exaggerated. It becomes almost impossible to win public opinion cleanly.
Honestly, when I watched the game, I just don't think he that nice at basketball. Like,
that's your real opinion.
I'm not hating, but I just don't think. I'd be like, bro, I don't.
This is where it gets dangerous. Young players can start playing scared when the criticism becomes louder than the development process. Instead of focusing on improving naturally, they start overthinking every possession because they know mistakes will dominate headlines. That's how confidence disappears. Basketball at the NBA level is heavily psychological. Talent matters, but confidence changes everything. We've seen countless young players lose aggression because they became too worried about public reaction. Bronny cannot afford to fall into that trap, because once hesitation enters your game in the NBA, defenders destroy you instantly. The interesting thing is that some former players actually defended Bronny after Stephen A's comments. They argued that development isn't linear and that people are ignoring context. They pointed out that Bronny missed important development time after his cardiac arrest incident in college. That alone changed his trajectory significantly. Most young prospects need uninterrupted growth years to sharpen offensive rhythm, conditioning, and confidence. Bronny lost valuable time, then entered the harshest spotlight imaginable immediately afterward. That matters, whether fans want to acknowledge it or not. Still, the NBA is not a sympathy league. That's the reality. At some point, production matters more than potential narratives. Fans eventually stop caring about circumstances and start asking simple questions. Can you contribute? Can you defend? Can you make open shots? Can you handle NBA pressure consistently? Stephen A's criticism reflects that harsh reality. The league does not pause for anyone's story. Once you're on the roster, expectations become real immediately. And for Bronny, expectations are multiplied because of the family legacy attached to his name. What makes this conversation even more fascinating is how divided basketball culture has become about nepotism versus opportunity. Some fans believe Bronny absolutely earned his shot because he was always a legitimate basketball prospect. Others believe the NBA pipeline works differently when your father is LeBron James. Both arguments continue fueling this debate nonstop. But the truth probably exists somewhere in the middle. Bronny clearly has real basketball ability. At the same time, his path undeniably received attention and opportunity most second-round players would never receive. Both things can be true simultaneously. And honestly, the media environment around this situation has become almost impossible to navigate fairly. If analysts criticize Bronny harshly, people accuse them of targeting a young player unfairly. If analysts defend him too much, people accuse them of protecting LeBron's family. There's almost no neutral ground anymore. Everything becomes extreme instantly. That's why Stephen A's comments exploded so fast online. People weren't just reacting to basketball analysis. They were reacting emotionally to what Bronny represents inside modern sports culture. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They start trying to silence critics instead of developing patiently. That's dangerous because forcing offense or chasing highlight moments usually backfires. Bronny's best path forward is probably the boring path nobody wants to hear about. Defense, hustle, smart decisions, consistency, gradual growth. That's how role players survive in this league, not by forcing superstar expectations onto themselves overnight. The problem is that social media rewards spectacle, not patience. So now Bronny has to resist the temptation of proving himself too quickly. There's also another uncomfortable truth here. LeBron's greatness unintentionally created impossible standards for his son. Most NBA players would look disappointing compared to a young LeBron James. We're talking about one of the greatest athletic phenoms sports has ever seen. Bronny was never projected to become that level of player, but emotionally, fans still compare them anyway because it's impossible not to. Every son of a legend deals with comparison pressure, but Bronny's situation is amplified globally because LeBron's career existed under non-stop media coverage for over 2 decades. And despite all the criticism, there are still flashes that explain why scouts liked Bronny in the first place. His defensive instincts are real, his effort level is real, his passing vision shows promise. Coaches consistently praise his professionalism and composure. Those qualities matter more than casual fans sometimes realize. Not every successful NBA career starts with scoring explosions. Some players carve out long careers through intelligence, discipline, and defense. The challenge is whether Bronny can develop enough offensively to make those strengths truly valuable at the highest level. Stephen A's comments also revealed something bigger about modern sports media. Young athletes today enter professional leagues under microscopic analysis instantly. There's barely any room for quiet development anymore. One rough stretch becomes viral content. One bad stat line becomes evidence for massive conclusions. Bronny's situation magnifies that reality to an extreme level because every sports show knows his name drives engagement. Whether positive or negative, people click on Bronny discussions constantly. That creates an environment where criticism becomes louder and more repetitive than normal. At the same time, Bronny deserves credit for continuing to handle the pressure publicly with emotional outbursts. A lot of young players would crack under this level of scrutiny. Every interview question circles back to LeBron. Every headline compares him to impossible standards, yet he's remained relatively composed through all of it. That mental discipline matters because surviving the NBA mentally is often harder than surviving physically. Talent alone doesn't keep players in the league. Emotional resilience matters too. The Lakers organization now faces an interesting challenge moving forward. They have to balance development with expectation management. If Bronny plays limited minutes, critics say he's not NBA ready. If he gets opportunities, critics say favoritism exists. There's no easy solution anymore. Every decision becomes controversial because the story surrounding him is bigger than basketball itself. That's why this situation keeps dominating sports debates. It touches legacy, nepotism, pressure, media culture, and player development all at once. And then there's the bigger legacy angle hanging over everything. LeBron spent years building one of the greatest careers sports has ever seen. Playing with his son became part of that legacy dream. But now Bronny's struggles are also becoming attached to that legacy conversation. Fair or unfair, people are debating whether LeBron's influence helped create unrealistic expectations that may actually hurt Bronny long-term. That's a painful conversation because the original story was supposed to feel inspirational, father and son sharing the NBA together. Instead, parts of the basketball world turned it into a controversy. Still, writing Bronny off right now would also be premature. NBA history is filled with players who struggled early before eventually finding their role. Development timelines vary dramatically. Some players look lost at first and improve later once the game slows down mentally. Others peak early and disappear. Nobody truly knows Bronny's future yet. That uncertainty is exactly why Stephen A's comments exploded so much reaction. Because underneath all the debate, people are still trying to figure out what Bronny James actually becomes as a player. And maybe that's the real issue here. People keep trying to decide Bronny's entire career before it even properly starts. Every game becomes a final verdict when it should just be part of a process. But modern sports culture doesn't reward patience anymore. It rewards instant takes, instant judgments, instant conclusions. Bronny is now trapped inside that machine, whether he deserves it or not. The scary part is that the pressure probably isn't going away anytime soon. As long as LeBron remains connected to the league, the attention stays massive. Every Bronny performance will continue getting dissected on television, podcasts, social media, and debate shows. The noise will only grow louder if struggles continue. That's why the next phase of his career matters so much. Not because he needs to become a superstar, but because he needs to establish his own basketball identity separate from the constant narrative surrounding his father. And right now, that's the central debate dividing basketball fans everywhere. Is Bronny James an underrated young player unfairly crushed by impossible expectations? Or is Stephen A. Smith right to question whether the NBA spotlight arrived too early for him? Because depending on who you ask, this story is either about unfair pressure destroying a prospect's confidence, or about the harsh reality of professional basketball exposing weaknesses that hype couldn't hide forever. Either way, one thing is undeniable. Bronny James is no longer just LeBron's son trying to make the league. He's becoming one of the most heavily scrutinized young athletes in modern basketball, and every single game from this point forward will shape how this entire story gets remembered.